Hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Cynthia if you are new here, and today we are participating in the mid-year book freakout tag for the books that I've read so far in 2024. And it's not that many. I've read 18 books so far, and honestly, I'm happy with that because my goal for the year was 36 books, so realistically, I'm on track. I am also going to tag the original creator of this tag in the description. I didn't answer all of the questions. I think the last two I kind of left up in the air, and we'll get to that by the end of the video. But the only other piece of housekeeping that I have is that there will be no spoilers. So if you're worried about hearing a spoiler for any of the books on this list, you don't have to worry. So with that being said, let's dive right in. Question number one, best book you've read so far this year. And hands down, the best book that I have read so far this year is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. I loved this book. If you watched my April reading recap or read my April reading recap over on the blog, you will know that I had such a fun time listening to this book. I genuinely cannot stop recommending it enough. If you like fantasy romance, if you like mythology, if you like a slow burn, if you like banter, if you like strong but not stereotypical like run-of-the-mill female main characters, you will love this book. And the audiobook narrator is just as fantastic. I had so much fun listening to her read the story, and just 10 out of 10, just 10 out of 10 would recommend. If you haven't read this book yet, what on earth are you waiting for? Go read this book right now. Pause my video, go read this book, and then come back and leave a comment of what you thought of it because I love it and I will never stop recommending this. Question number two, best sequel you've read so far this year. And I think this will come as a shock to nobody. The best sequel that I read this year was The Everqueen by L.J. Andrews. When I read The Everking last fall, I think fall 2023, I just fell in love. I fell in love with the characters, with the world, and I could not wait for the second part of Eric and Livia's duology, and it did not disappoint. Something that I noticed with a lot of the books that I was reading last year, they were parts of series, I just wasn't happy with the sequels or even the third books. Like, I was finishing trilogies and I was just like, oh, you know, like it just progressively kept getting not better. And the Everqueen just delivers everything a sequel should deliver. It was so nice to finally read a book that was a follow-up to another book that ripped my heart out in the best possible way. It was just so nice. It was a breath of fresh air. I do also have an honorable mention for this question, and the honorable mention is Vows and Ruins by Helen Schurer. I recently discovered Helen Schurer, as in like last month. I read the Legends of Thesmar series, and I'm currently reading the fourth book in the series. And I love the series so much. And honestly, Vows and Ruins does kind of fall into the category of there wasn't enough spice in the first book, so the author just gave us way too much in the second book category, but I still loved it and it was still a good sequel. It's honestly a great series. I think the third book so far has been my favorite series just because of that character growth for Thea, but we'll see. I'm not done with the fourth book yet, so it's too early to judge. But in terms of best sequels, definitely The Everqueen by L.J. Andrews with an honorable mention of Vows and Ruins by Helen Schurer. Number three is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. So the first thing that came to mind when I saw this question was Powerful by Lauren Roberts. And you could consider Powerful to be like book 1.5 in the series because it's kind of a novella. It's not really a full like novel like Powerless is. And even though I didn't love Powerless, I feel like I'm so invested because I spent so much time just diving into the story that like I want to know what's gonna happen. I want to see it through to the end. I'm committed. I don't really like it, but I am. So Powerful, I believe, was published at the end of April and I have not read it yet. I did borrow a copy from my library, but I had to put it down because work got super chaotic and I didn't get back to it in time before the loan ran out, and because literally everyone and their mom is reading it right now, there is a whole time, so I will hopefully be able to read it soon. I definitely want to read it before Powerless comes out, July 7th, I believe. So the clock is ticking. As of filming this, I have about 2 weeks. My hopes aren't super high, but we'll see. But I'm just gonna hold my phone going forward because I'm having such like brain farts where like I look at it, I'm like, okay, I gotta say it, and then it's gone. I'm just gonna hold my phone. Number four is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This one was a struggle because I have a list of books that I am still so super excited for. Not all of them made it onto my list for my most like anticipated reads of 2024 back when I made it in like the end of December 2023 because there have been new books added with release dates that back in December of 2023 did not have release dates. So if I have to pick the book at the very top of my list, it would be Wisteria by Adeline Grace. It publishes on August 20th of 2024, and you know where I'm gonna be, what I'm gonna be doing on August 20th, 2024. And this one also has honorable mentions. I'm also very excited for Throne of Secrets by Carrie Maniscalco. I will admit I was disappointed because I want my messy Pride, Lucia, Vittoria love story, triangle, messy, whatever it is. That's what I wanted. That's what I'm waiting for. But instead we're getting Gluttony. So I don't know. Carrie Maniscalco has posted snippets on her Instagram, and I'm not gonna lie, I read the first one and was kind of like, so I've stopped reading them. Am I still gonna read the book when it comes out? Yes. The other honorable mention is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent, which focuses on one of the side characters, Mish, from The Serpent on the Wings of Night. And if you've read that book and you don't love Mish, like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Like, do you need a hug? But The Songbird and the Heart of Stone is my second honorable mention. And I guess we'll go with top three. Those are my top three that I'm looking forward to. But Wisteria publishes the soonest of the three. So that is definitely my like by far most anticipated read. Number 5 is Biggest Disappointment. And if I'm being honest, I have two. Please don't come for me. I always get so nervous when I like heavily criticize like book that other people like loved because I know how that feels when someone like hates something that you loved. So please don't come for me. I will do my best to be kind in my criticisms. The first book is Lore of the Wilds by Annalise Sabara. This book promised so much. And I think it truly was just a case of the author was so excited to write this story that she just bit off more than she could chew. Because the truth is that it's not a bad story. Like the premise itself isn't bad. The characters aren't that bad. I think the progression of the story gets a little kind of clunky and all over the place, but I think that's more to the fact that this is the author's first book, and the first time you do anything, it's gonna suck. I am a testament to that. The first time I do anything, 99% of the time, it sucks. So I'm definitely excited to see what else the author publishes, especially because I believe Lore of the Wilds is the first book of 3 in this series. So I'm going to continue with the series. I really hope the author is able to take the well-intentioned criticisms and really just channel that into the next 2 books in the series because, like I said, there's so much potential with this book. I think it was just too all over the place and too chaotic and honestly a little bit lazy at some point, and I just wish it had been cleaned up a little better. And also, there were some really like adult dark themes in a book that was marketed as YA. And I can forgive books that are marketed as YA, but have a smut scene towards the end. I can't forgive YA books that have some themes as dark as this one did. Moving on, the other disappointment for me was The Witch Collector by Carissa Weeks. And I saw a comment on Goodreads from someone who said that this series was going to be the next ACOTAR. And let me tell you, I have trust issues. I don't even remember when I read this book, but I remember when I recapped it in my monthly reading recap, I remember that I pointed out that the story lost me about 50% in, and I literally only finished it for the smut because Alexis Thibault, man, I can't. Like, what an MMC. I can't. But he was pretty much the only reason that I was still hanging on to this story. Otherwise, I 100% would have DNF'd it. I literally just skimmed, got to the smut, skimmed the rest, and was like, good. Peace. I don't know. My expectation level was way up there, and the actual book's delivery was somewhere around here. It just misaligned expectations. Number 6 is Biggest Surprise. This might be a little silly, but Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli was by far my like biggest surprise read of this year because I went into this book blind. It popped up on my Libby feed and I sampled the audiobook. I liked the narrator, so I just borrowed it. I don't even think I had read the summary before I borrowed it. I think I had just saw like witch hunter, whatever. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm in. And I ended up loving it so much. I did want more of like the Crimson Moth aspect of the story and less the like weird love triangle that should never end, that should never have ended the way it ended love triangle. But honestly, I I'm so obsessed with this story. I still think about the ending of this book, and I cannot wait for the second book. Like, I will be unwell until I have a copy of the second book. Number 7 is favorite new author, Helen Scher. Without a doubt, if she writes it, I will read it. I can't. Like, you cannot write side characters that funny and expect me to not become obsessed with everything you write. You just can't. I'm sorry. 8 is newest fictional crush. I was a little nervous about this one because I don't want anyone to come for me, okay? But but if I'm being honest, I'm very curious about Torj Elderbrock from the Legends of Thesmar series. When I first read Blood and Steel, I thought Elderbrock was really, really old, but I actually believe he's closer in age to like Talamir, who was Wilder's mentor. If you don't know what I mean and I'm confusing you, I'm so sorry. Feel free to skip ahead. I have chapters below, but if you do know what I'm talking about, I'm very curious. Also, Helen Schurer in, I believe, an email newsletter, or was it Instagram? I think it might have been Instagram. She posted about how she's continuing to write books in the Legends of Thesmar world. And I have a feeling we might be seeing a certain war sword and a certain alchemist. So I'm going to stop because I'm starting to act weird. Yeah, let's move on. Actually, no, let's not move on because honorable mention is Iran from A Feather So Black by Lyra Celine. And yes, I know he's like Shadow Daddy number 687. Okay, I know, I get it. It's so overdone, but I love him. Okay, like I love him. Where's my wife? My wife? He taught me that my wife is a new favorite trope of mine. Okay, it just is. I'm sorry. And if there was anything that I loved about A Feather So Black by Lyra Celine, Iron is definitely high on the list of things that I loved about that book. So with that being said, let's move on. Number 9 is newest favorite character, Callan Kip. Callan Kip. I could make a whole video on how much I love Callan Kip from the Legends of Thesmar series, but I'm gonna spare you and just say Callan Kip and let's move on. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. This one was a little tricky for me. I'm not like a book sobber. Books don't really make me cry. And I had to stop and be like, okay, when was the last book that actually made me cry? Or like even just tear up? The last book to actually make me like cry was A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Like early on, that scene with Tamlin, but then I thought about the books I've read this year. None of them have really made me cry. If anything, Fates and Furies by Helen Schurer kind of made me tear up. I really loved the ending of this book, and I kind of touched on that a little bit in my May reading recap when I talked about this series. And just like Thea's growth is just so beautiful. So I don't know if these have to be like sad tears, if I have to feel sad like I did when I read that scene in A Court of Mist and Fury, but I guess these were more happy tears for Thea and her like character development and all these other things. But yeah, I'm not really a book crier, so this one was a little tricky. I guess in the end, I would just say Fates and Furies by Helen Schurer. But if happy tears don't count, none of the books I've read this year have made me cry. Number 11 is Book That Made You Happy. The Everqueen by L.J. Andrews was definitely a high point in my reading so far of 2024 because not only was it one of my absolute favorite sequels, but the ending was just so beautiful, okay? It was just so goddamn beautiful. It wrapped up so nicely, and it made me so happy to see Eric and Livia get the ending that they truly deserved. And also to get a continuation of this book that focuses on Jonas, like, I am so happy. I'm so excited. An honorable mention for this one is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. Half a Soul is not going to be for everyone, okay? It's like Regency, fantasy. The Fae are not your Sarah J. Maas Fae. They're mean. They're the cruel prince type of fae. But honestly, like I just enjoyed that book so much. I listened to that book as an audiobook and I really liked the narrator and I don't know, it just like filled my cup. I wasn't expecting to like Half a Soul as much as I did, but if you like kind of Regency fantasy romance novels, I would definitely give this one a shot. If you like your fae tall, dark, and handsome, maybe skip this one. So number 12 is most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. And to me, the two prettiest books I have by far, in my opinion, are definitely Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett and Foxglove by Adeline Grace. They're both coincidentally Barnes and Noble's exclusive editions, which I did not do on purpose. I'm not someone who really buys special editions. Like, I'm not that kind of book collector. I just love to be surrounded by books, if I'm being honest. And these two I actually snagged on sale when my local Barnes and Nobles was closing. These two, while they are definitely two of the prettiest books that I have acquired this year, Barnes and Noble's editions are definitely not like up my alley. I definitely do not go out like seeking them. I still have to read this one, which is kind of insane that I haven't because I literally have a copy, but I'm such like a Kindle girly these days that okay, so there were two more questions on the list, but I am gonna skip over them primarily because my TBR list is embarrassingly long. Like, we're gonna be here all day, all night, all weekend, all week if we're gonna if we're gonna have an honest discussion about my TBR. Like, we're gonna be here for a while, so I would literally just order in, just like go order takeout and get yourself nice and cozy and call out of work tomorrow because you're gonna be here with me talking about my TBR. So, so I skipped that one to save you and I the agony of opening that can of worms. And the last one I skipped because I believe the question revolved around like book content creator friends. And I skipped this one primarily because this is the first time that I'm ever actually like making. I've never participated in this tag before, and I'm also someone who consumes content. I don't really engage with the content. So there are so many bookish creators that I love, but there aren't really any bookish creators that I've connected with on just even like a friendly, like friendship level. So I think my intention with skipping this question was more just to express how excited I am to participate. And I'm gonna start wrapping it up because, to be honest, I haven't read a lot this year, but what I have read, I've enjoyed. Like, I've really, really enjoyed for the most part. I don't have too many complaints. I have plenty of criticisms. I don't have too many complaints. But if you've read any of the books on this list, I definitely love to hear your thoughts on them in the comments. I just like to know other people's thoughts on books that I read, especially because sometimes I'm someone who will read a book and absolutely love it and go to Goodreads and everyone hated it. Or the opposite, where I read a book and I'm like, oh my God, that was the worst thing I've ever read. And then I go to Goodreads and everyone's like, oh my God, this is my favorite book. This is my new personality. And it's just like, I don't think we read the same thing. Yeah, let me know your thoughts below if you've read any of the books on this list. And with that being said, I don't really have too much more to add. I'm kind of getting hungry. I should probably go make dinner. And yeah, this was fun. I had a lot of fun. I hope you had fun if you made it to this point, even if you jumped around. Like, that's why I put chapters. So, so anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.